Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Well, ladies and gentlemen, do you all know who Robert Babson was? Well, let me tell you, he was a gentleman that was warning everyone about the 1929 stock market crash. He was warning everyone about it, and he was blamed in a way for the stock market taking a little bit of a dip before that fateful day. I believe it was on 29 September 1929 where it really took a dive. Well, ladies and gentlemen, many people did not believe him, and they kept buying into the market. They kept going into the market in margin and borrowing money to go into the market and not really hedging themselves. And then we all know what happened. It's history. Many people lost everything. And Mr. Babson said back in 1929, sooner or later the crash is coming, and it may be terrific. He also said that factories will be shut down, men will be thrown out of work, the vicious circle will get in full swing, and the result will be a serious business depression. There may be a stampede for selling which will exceed anything that the stock exchange has ever witnessed, he warned. According to reports in the New York Times, he said that wise are those investors who now get out of debt and reef their sails. Ladies and gentlemen, these were warnings that he was given out that turned out to be true. And what I would like to encourage you to do is to try to think outside the box and don't look at something that's not happening in your world as something that cannot happen at all. Why did I take you through that little journey in time, ladies and gentlemen? Because right now, in many Western nations, specifically here in the United States of America, we do not see the great food shortage that is occurring worldwide. But we will see it eventually. And it is why it is so important that you prepare for the day that that train finally hits the wall. Because I guarantee you one thing, that train is headed towards the wall, metaphorically speaking, of course, ladies and gentlemen, and it's going to hit it eventually. The question is this: will you be prepared for when that day comes? I'd rather be prepared, as the saying goes, for 10 years early than to try to get prepared 1 minute too late after the crisis has already begun and there are people fighting in the streets and rioting and taking over supermarkets because they have nowhere else to go and they did not prepare ahead of time. And the warnings are everywhere, ladies and gentlemen. This is the worst global food crisis in modern history, and it's about to go to an entirely new level. I've talked about our carryovers for this year into next year. And for those of you that don't know what our carryovers are, it's like the extras that we have going into the following year after we've already used everything that we were going to use this year. Our carryovers, ladies and gentlemen, are dismal, and they have been at a deficit for the last few years. Now, what happens when we go into next year, or maybe the year after that, with a zero carryover, meaning that we will be 100% at the mercy of the weather and the circumstances by which farmers have in order to be able to plant and harvest a crop that will successfully feed not the world, but your little part of the world where you live. Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. It's happened throughout history, time and time and time again. So why is it that it's not going to happen ever again? You just don't know, and that is why getting prepared is so important. Hundreds of millions of people are desperately hungry all over the world right now, ladies and gentlemen. And by the time that you are done reading this, they say, more children will have literally starved to death. We are in the midst of the worst food crisis in modern history. Take this seriously, ladies and gentlemen. Unlike those people in the late 20s that did not take Mr. Babson serious and lost everything. Think about what good will money be if you are starving and you don't have access to food? Or what good will money be, ladies and gentlemen, if it's not enough to purchase you a can of beans? We can go either way. We are in the midst of the worst food crisis in modern history. But because the mainstream media rarely features images of the tremendous suffering on the other side of the globe, most Americans don't even know what is happening. And let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. It is the mainstream media that pretty much shapes the thought of people in the United States, at least, and in other Western nations. And it is why it's so very important that you have an open mind and then you take a look at other opinions or even other facts. This is a fact. This is not just someone saying it. Even the World Food Program is stating we are in a major crisis where billions of people are on the verge of starving. So don't take my word for it. Do a little bit of research and just take a look at what's happened in history as far as famines go. It's a cycle and it will happen again. Here in the Western world, the primary way that the global food crisis is manifesting itself, I've talked about this before, is through significantly higher prices at the grocery store. Those higher prices are certainly painful, but we can deal with that for now. We can deal with that for now. Because you see, ladies and gentlemen, first is going to be higher prices. Then it's going to be prices where people just can't afford it, period. And then it's going to be scarcity where the food is just not going to be available because even the producers are going to be stressed in being able to pay for that food. They just won't be able to get it. Remember during the Great Depression? Take a look back. There were farmers plowing over their fields. There were farmers that were actually dumping a whole bunch of milk and all these things that could have actually been consumed by people that were hungry. But they weren't buying it. Why? Because there was no money. So it could be a lack of money or a lack of food. We really don't know. In this case, I think it's going to be a combination of both, depending where you live in the world. I'll keep saying it. Just get prepared. Getting prepared is paramount, especially this time in history that we're living, ladies and gentlemen. Now listen to these numbers and hopefully they'll wake you up. By 2022, about 735 million people, which is almost 10% or 9% of the world population, found themselves in a state of chronic hunger, a staggering rise compared to 2019. This data underscores the severity of the situation, revealing a growing crisis that's only going to get bigger. And this is an even worse number because this is the next group of people that will find themselves in the same situation that the group of people we just talked about are in right now. An estimated 2.4 billion people face moderate to severe food insecurity in 2022. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be the next step. Next step for them is to be in the same group that we just discussed previously. This classification signifies their lack of access to sufficient nourishment. This number escalated by an alarming 391 million people compared to 2019. Incredible. We're not talking about little numbers here. We're talking about huge numbers. Think about how many people 391 million is. Try to picture that. First of all, it's more than all of the people in the United States. It's a big number. We have never seen numbers like this. And the final numbers for 2023 will be even higher because crops are failing all over the planet. And you're not hearing this, ladies and gentlemen. And they continue to say, for example, this year has been a catastrophic one for rice in India. The government of India responded to this crisis by banning the export of non-basmati white rice. But this has created a mass problem for dozens of countries that rely on rice exports from India. And since then, I believe that India has not banned but restricted the exports of other types of rice, like broken rice as well. And I think maybe jasmine. Not sure about that one though. The move has triggered fears of global food inflation, hurt the livelihoods of some farmers, and prompted several rice-dependent countries to seek urgent exemptions from the ban. More than 3 billion people, ladies and gentlemen, worldwide, rely on rice as a staple food, and India contributed to about 40% of all global rice exports. People are going to starve. So the price has been surging all over the world, and supplies are getting tighter and tighter. Let me ask you a question, they said. What would you do if your child was wasting away from malnutrition right in front of your eyes? That alone, just that alone, ladies and gentlemen, should get you to really think about getting stocked up, getting a full pantry of all the sustenance that you and your family need for an extended period of time. It's not for the end of the world, ladies and gentlemen. Preparedness is not for the end of the world. It's so that you can continue living and your family can continue enjoying the standard of living that they enjoy right now. Here in the Western world, our children are not starving, so we should be thankful for that. But the lines at our food banks are getting longer. I've covered that as well. Miss Mackenzie, a SNAP outreach manager for the food bank, said the Liberty Street Pantry is seeing 940 more families per month since the end of February. That's a large increase. Based on the amount of food given out by Free Store, she estimated that the demand on the pantry is up by 27% compared to June of 2022, so about a year ago. Food pantries, ladies and gentlemen, food banks, as I like to call them, very important. If there is one near you, support it if you can, because you never know when you may have to be a recipient of their help. So support your local food banks and your local charities, only if you can. You have to take care of your own house before you take care of someone else's. And we are experiencing problems with our crops as well, ladies and gentlemen. Here they say that a lack of rain has hit crops hard. In Missouri, for example, 40% of the state's corn crop was classified as poor or very poor. Iowa, the nation's top corn producer, is in the midst of its worst drought in decades, with about 80% of the state in some measure of drought. Unfortunately, we are still only in the very early stages of this new global food crisis, and that is why you should start preparing now. Because I do believe this. We are in the early stages. I believe that in the next 10 years, we will go through the worst. Each year getting worse until we're finally out of this cycle, ladies and gentlemen. But if you don't prepare for it, you're going to find yourself being lucky to make it to the other side. And if you do make it to the other side, you will just have made it. Why won't you rather strive through this instead of just make it when you know what's coming down the road and you can prepare for it right now? Again, I tell you, this train will hit the wall, whether you like it or not. Multiple long-term trends will continue to make it impossible for us to feed everyone on the planet in the years ahead. And have you heard that the government is thinking about putting stuff in the atmosphere to block the sunlight from the sun? Isn't that just magnificent? At the same time that governments all over the world are saying, we need to go to solar, they're saying, let's block the sun. And I'm just wondering, are they even thinking of what's going to happen when we have no sun for the solar? It's upside down world, ladies and gentlemen, and just for that fact, you need to get prepared. Our politicians know what's going on, but they are being very quiet about our rapidly growing food crisis because they don't want to alarm the general population. God forbid if we were a prepared citizenry and didn't need our government during crisis. Governments thrive on the people being dependent to them for their safety, their security, and obviously their nourishment. Because if you control the food, ladies and gentlemen, you will control the people. But there will be no escape, they say. Hundreds of millions will not have enough food to eat tonight, and it won't be too long before the number of people that are facing chronic hunger exceeds 1 billion. And then, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to go into a place in the history of our world, not just this country, that we have not seen in generations. And many people will not be able to handle it. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So listen, I'll cover this really quick before I let you all go for the day. So in case I forget to say it, have a great rest of your day, ladies and gentlemen. But if you see these little ads pop up, like for Genesis Gold Group, like you see right there, I think it's here or here, in the block right below me, right there. Ladies and gentlemen, those are called billboard ads. And yes, I make a very small amount of dollars for putting those in there. So I appreciate any advertisers that want to go ahead and use a little bit of my space when I'm doing a video so that I can make a little extra money. I'm not sure if you've heard, but YouTube revenue has been down, and I'm not complaining. I'm just innovating. All right, so that's why these are here. So I want to thank Genesis Gold Group for going ahead and placing some billboard ads on my videos, because it really does help an awful lot. Now, I won't forget to say it. I hope that you have a great day. Thank you very much for joining in. Remember that tomorrow afternoon, Friday at 4 p.m. Alaska time, 8 p.m. Eastern time, we will have our Friday live stream, so I hope to see you all there. Other than that, God bless every one of you. God bless America. I'm Alaska Prepper. I'm out.